board's present, and I don't know if we're going to have any visitors. Chris, did you get the roll? The only person missing is Kathy.
Yeah, do you want me to call it, or?
No, Kathy's not coming.
No, I mean, we're going to call the roll.
Oh, you can.
Okay, just for fun.
Rory. Here. Beckman.
Here.
Fox.
Here.
Ruffing.
Here.
Spells.
Yes.
And Miller.
Here.
Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome Dan to the board. He's the new representative from Saugatuck.
Welcome.
Welcome, Dan.
We meet every Saturday.
Yeah, 9 a.m.
Yeah, you don't mind.
Convenient.
Oh, don't start that.
You'll be alone.
Actually, 6 a.m., but we started late for the
Yeah,
holiday.
day off, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, and on the holidays,
Yes, no.
we always have a special meeting.
Yeah.
Um,
And the pay's great.
Okay, the agenda stands because this is a special meeting, so you can't change the agenda after it's set. So, there's no public, so we'll move on to unfinished business. A is, an update on the Fire Board of Appeals. I think, Aaron, you were appointed by Douglas, is that correct? And I was appointed by the city of Saugatuck, and Eric, you were appointed by the township. So our next order of business is to write the bylaws. And I noticed in your packet for the township, there's bylaws. I'm not sure.
Yeah, those are what we suggested you use as a starting point to help out. What we'll be passing is for the township, for those in township who want to go to the Board of Appeals, we'll supply them an application form, and we'll take their fee.
Okay, but we haven't set a fee yet.
You can, how you handle your ordinance or you handle yours is up to you. That's how we're going to handle our ordinance.
Well, I think the district works as a district, and we all have the same ordinances. So we can't have a separate set of rules for the township and then a separate set of rules for the two communities. So the bylaws have to be...
But they should be driven from the municipality it starts in.
No, the bylaws are written...
Well, the
by-
We're not
bylaws.
talking about bylaws here. We're talking about an application from
Application.
somebody in the township who wants to go before the Board of Appeals. They're going to come to the township zoning administrator. He's going to make sure they understand how our zoning works correctly, not incorrectly, by the fire department. Then we're going to actually accept that application, the fee, and then 10 days from there, the Board of Appeals will be called together, and they will hear that appeal. I don't know how you want to handle it for the city or yours. That's up to you. That's how we're going to handle it.
Well, all right, well, that's up for debate, because I think we have to handle this the same in every municipality.
That's why I think you have rules and procedures. As far as how you handle your ordinances, that's up to you.
Okay, why do you have the bylaws in here?
That was just.
We're helping out, Jane. You have to
It's a suggestion.
give them to the lawyer. You have to have them reviewed. Have you done anything with them?
Yes, I've
Okay,
given them to
good.
a lawyer, like you said in the last board.
We're trying to help. We're trying to help.
But I
along.
don't understand why you're passing them.
We're not passing it. We're discussing it.
All right. The bylaws are not up to you. They are up to us.
Right,
Duh.
yeah.
We know that.
Duh.
We know that.
So we-
You guys were talking about, let's
All
stop
right,
this
we'll
pissing
move on.
match.
Yeah, no
Let's
kidding.
go.
All right, so that's where we stand with the Fire Board of Appeals. Moving on to the spreadsheet, Aaron?
Sure. So we'll actually walk through a PowerPoint presentation that talks through three things, which I'll pull up in just a second. And it's open. So three topics all around the known effects of the Township Fire Code amendments and then potential issue resolution. So the three topics are just a quick refresher on what the amendments included, then the effects that have been documented so far by the fire department, and then suggestions or ideas for potential resolutions of those effects. So, quick refresher, this is International Fire Code Section 102.5, all about application of the residential code, where structures are designed and constructed in accordance with the International Residential Code. The provisions of this IFC code apply as follows. Number one, to construction and design provisions, including but not limited to premises identification, fire apparatus access, and water supplies. And then part two is administrative, operational, and maintenance provisions of this code shall apply. So Saugatuck and Douglas have both said we adopt 102.5 as it's written, as is in the IFC. The township made changes. They say, okay, section 102.5, we want to amend that to read application of a residential code for parcels on which the principal structure is subject to the Michigan Residential Code. For 1 or 2 family dwellings, the provisions of this code shall apply only as follows. 1, construction and design. Provisions pertaining to water supply and fire flows apply to 1 and 2 family dwellings when constructed as part of new subdivisions, site condominiums, or other similar large-scale residential developments that require review by the Township Planning Commission. And those provisions also apply to the development of any parcel that prior to August 2nd, 2017 was part of a parent parcel that has been subsequently divided into 4 child parcels pursuant to the Michigan Land Division Act. Part B, provisions of this code pertaining to fire apparatus access do not apply to driveways or private roads that serve only 1 or 2 family dwellings, but many of those provisions have been incorporated into the township zoning ordinance. And then the last part is that 102.5.2, administrative, operational, and maintenance provisions do not impose obligations on the owner or occupant of a 1-family or 2-family dwelling, except when it's subject to a rental permit. The fire code official will inspect rental dwellings only upon request of the township zoning administrator. So this amendment was adopted in November 2017.
I got a question. I asked last week if all the inspections of rentals are all the same. By the fire department inspects long-term and short-term, correct? The township, the cities are all the same?
Short-term, 30 days or
I
less.
thought they were long-term also.
We have not received any applications for long-term, like for, say, an annual lease.
Yeah.
We handle those via an annual inspection on the building, like an apartment building, like, say, Old Mill or
Okay.
Ridgewood Oaks type thing.
Well, the only reason why I'm saying is it's on there.
Now you have to relieve out your goal zeros for a fire alarm at 5:00.
It's requested of the township zoning administrator, but the fire officials inspect all of them, not upon the request of the zoning administrator, correct?
Yeah, I think what they were referring to was strictly the scope of that would be relative to 30 or less as short-term rentals. We don't even look at that when we do annual inspections.
Okay.
And that, in the whole, I think when the township did the rental inspection process, there was a confusion if it encompassed, leases per se, because these aren't leased rentals. So the way it was concluded was this was applicable of 30 or less.
30 or less.
30 or less days.
Short-term.
Oh,
Short
days.
term.
Okay. So, reading through these changes, just to summarize the key amendments or pieces of this, and what I think can be potential ambiguities within that, is number 1, that water supply and fire flow requirements are only subject to ISC for large-scale developments that require review by the Township Planning Commission. So, questions in my mind is, how is a large-scale residential development defined? Which of those require planning commission review and which do not? What's the purpose of the reference to Land Division Act? I've read through that about 100 times and don't understand what that means, or I don't understand the intent of it even. And then what processes are in place to ensure clear reviews and approvals as we make these amendments and give more, complicate the review and approvals, how to make sure it's really clear around what needs review, how that gets done, and how approval is officially granted. Number 2, fire apparatus access IFC requirements have been removed and are subject to township zoning ordinance. So then I wonder, how are the township zoning ordinance requirements determined? Were they by fire experts or was it by another means? And I simply don't know, but I assume that you guys have gone through that in the township around how the ordinance was actually established. Third is that rental dwellings are not inspected unless requested by the zoning administrator. So then the ambiguity there is in which cases will the zoning administrator request inspection, in which cases will they not. It's no longer a standard procedure, it is only when requested, so then you wonder what prompts that request and what doesn't. And then last is that administrative operational maintenance provisions no longer apply to single-family, non-rental dwellings. Effects. So effects of the revision to section 102.5.1, which is all about construction and design, water supplies, and fire apparatus access into those new developments. Because it's all about construction and design, the actual effects might not be experienced for years or decades after developments are built and after an adverse event happens without adequate water supply or access. But confusion about process and approvals exists now. We see that with North Shore, where there's debate over whether approval was given or whether it was not. Second is that revisions to section 102.5.2, which is all about the administrative operational maintenance and rental inspections, have resulted in concrete effects that the fire department's been documenting over the last, since it was passed in November, which we'll review next. So just to set the expectation, there's 10 of these that we'll talk through. Number one is dry hydrant testing. So dry hydrants in property developments with 1 and 2 family dwellings are no longer being annually tested by the Saugatuck Fire Department. The reason for that is because maintenance obligations were removed. So IFC 507.5.3 requires maintenance and testing of private fire service, and that no longer applies because maintenance obligations were removed as part of the amendments. There are 4 dry hydrants today in the township that this affects. Correct?
Do you know them right offhand, just for curiosity?
I'm sorry?
Do you know which ones, the 4, where are they, right off the
Yes,
top
sir.
of your head?
Yes, sir.
Where are they?
Pikes Ridge Court,
Okay.
Winwood Lane, and now there's 2, we were told, we don't have it in writing, but we were told there's 2 out at North Shores.
That's number 1. Number 2 is obstructions of access roads, so down trees and other obstructions for access roads that serve 1 and 2 family dwellings are no longer removed by the fire department for the same reason that maintenance obligations for fire apparatus access roads were removed. So there have been 3 documented experiences to date on that topic. Here's an example of the details. So there's an obstruction of the fire apparatus access road. The department was dispatched for a tree down. They arrived to find a small tree across Clearview Lane. 21011, who's that? You.
2101.
210.
Oh, 21011 was another officer.
Okay, another officer contacted you as the fire district is not responsible for private roadways due to the amendments. You advised that the roadway should be cleared anyway in the event of an actual emergency. So the crew cut it up and made Clearview Lane accessible. But the conflict there is that's actually no longer in the fire department's purview to actually do that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that call was from February. There are 2 other issues that were similar about obstructions of access roads. Third is obstruction of hydrants. So down trees and other hydrant obstructions at single-family dwellings are no longer removed by the fire department for the same reason that maintenance obligations were removed. So 507.5.4, which requires maintenance to remove obstructions for all hydrants, no longer applies. There's been 1 experience of that today.
Currently, Chris, who would, since the fire department no longer takes care of the...
The way it's been working is the chief calls Aaron calls our service provider, and they'll clear it out.
So meantime, the house is burning down and gotta wait for them to show up.
And prior to that, we had a situation where it was not us, it was actually the electric company had cleared some brush and put it around, and we called them. I'm not here to debate this. I just want to hear if there are actual facts that I can bring to my board. If the purpose of this debate this again, we're all wasting our time. Let's just get the facts out.
Those are the facts.
Thanks.
So this is an example of that. I don't know if you want me to read through these, if that's helpful, or not. It is what we just talked through. So in this case, it looks like the fire department referred to Cal Lake. Cal Lake thought the township would be responsible. I I'm not sure who actually took care of it.
Yeah, I think that was the one Chris was referring to where I think Aaron determined it was the power company that cut some trees down there and took care of it a couple of days later.
Okay. Number 4 is smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. So homeowners are no longer required by code to have operating smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, and the fire department is no longer authorized.
Isn't that a federal law? They have to have.
I know, it's code for new homes.
New construction.
I don't know, it's a federal law, it's a state law.
State law.
Yeah, state law, yeah.
So what's the issue then? Is it that you can't assist with correcting the issues because of this?
Well, the issue is we have the authority, we have the authority to go there and respond. We have no authority to say you need to change the smoke alarm so we don't have to keep coming back on a false alarm. So that's where the implication seems to be not in the best interest of anybody.
So
because
you can't go to a homeowner and say, would you please change your smoke alarm because you're getting false alarms? You're not allowed to, or you don't want to, or you can't, or what?
We don't have the authority to require them to change that required device,
Okay.
because that's an internal device that's required by the International Residential Code. However, it has implications for us on repeat occurrence, not even to touch into this whole safety issue. We knew about it, we were there, and we left. But we have no authority to say, we need to go change that.
So in this example, they found the smoke alarm sounding, they spoke to ADT and disarmed it. The homeowner spoke to ADT and tech will come and service it. They advised the homeowner the alarm system is not operational, but the fire department does not have authority to speak with ADT and disarm it, and the homeowner is not obligated to repair. Number 5, address identification. So homes with improper address displays may not be found. Why? Administrative and maintenance obligations were removed, so the fire department no longer has authority to require approved address identification per IFC 505.1. So there's been one experience of that. So this is kind of a long one, but basically the homeowner wondered why an emergency crew could not find their house on a previous call. The fire department went out there and had trouble finding it themselves because it was down a dead-end two-track road without a very visible address sign. Number 6, fire truck access. So fire trucks may not be able to safely or easily access dwellings because per modified IFC 102.5.1b, fire apparatus access does not apply to driveways or private roads. Township ordinance may not be as complete or stringent as IFC. That again goes back to at least the question I have around how are the township ordinances around private roads determined?
I thought they were.
They're as strict or-
As strict or better than the ISA.
Well, no, yes and no. Let's be accurate here. Some of the fire code road requirements were moved from here to here, so Steve Cushion, the zoning administrator, was not operating the International Fire Code, not interpreting it, enforcing it. So some of those codes were removed from the IFC under the private road ordinance. Some were kept the same, some were changed. For example, one example of a change would be the turnaround requirement was at 150 feet. They took that to 200 feet. So instead of 150 feet, we have to wait till there's 200 feet before we can have a turnaround. That's not making it better, it's making it worse. An improvement, on the other side, an improvement, we incorporated on long driveways. Say we had a 1,000-foot driveway, we have pullovers so that we can pass, so that tanker can go off to the side and we can get traffic through. So that was a good thing, and that we picked up from Norton Shores, just to be honest. So that was a good thing. But so there was some dilution, and then there was the one that I can think of that improved was that one. The one where we added pull-offs to the side. Does that make sense?
7, well, here's the fire truck access example. A situation where It was a long driveway without enough room to turn around, so they had to back out the truck several thousand feet to get
Was
out.
this a new home, or was this built after we changed the ordinance?
Here in May.
No idea.
Oh,
May.
okay. So this isn't a result of the township ordinance, it's just an example?
No, we're not saying that. We think the township ordinance has always been 20 feet. As far as I've seen the ordinance, if there's 2 or more houses on a road, it's 20 feet.
Right.
And what we had was 17 feet, and we couldn't get the aerial properly.
Yeah, but when was this road constructed? Was it constructed 2 years ago, this summer? When was it constructed? And do you have any idea? Because it was constructed, what the codes were at the time, right?
It was constructed years ago, but it was repaved recently,
Last summer.
last summer.
Right, it was repaved, so it was paved over the original surface. So I'm still confused why this is an example if it never met any codes in the first place. What's this example?
Well, every time they've repaved roads now, like Indian Point and Pepperbrook, they widen them to meet the code requirements, so we don't know why this was excluded.
Where is this road at again?
Here in May.
Aaron,
Is that a public or a private road?
I'm assuming it's private because it's only 17 feet wide.
It's over by, it's off in the Blue Star.
Off of Maple?
Off Maple.
It's a private road, they probably paid to have it paved at their expense by a private contractor. I'm not sure why they didn't widen it. It's a private road. If it's a public road, then it's under jurisdiction of the Allegan County Road Commission, and they would follow whatever rules they think they need to.
But the code covers, it doesn't matter if it's private or public. You know, access is so important, so we put it on the list as an example of why we need 20-foot roads, particularly at these taller structures where we need the aerial to get on the roof. We had a hard time with this particular one, so we thought it was noteworthy to put it on there. We didn't spend time with when the road was built. We don't know when the house was built. I'd say the house was within the last 15 years, but I don't know. We didn't spend time looking at that.
So going forward, I'd like to know where it occurs, when the construction was, so we understand if it was under the new township situation or the old township situation. I think that's the kind of stuff we need to know. Because this doesn't mean anything to me right now. I don't even know when it's
Okay,
available.
wait a minute, we're not gonna argue this.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you what I need to bring.
Okay.
I didn't ask for this, so.
Well, yeah, you did it.
I did not know. I'll tell you specifically what I asked for if you'd like to know.
I'll move on. Rental?
7, rentals may not be inspected for fire safety. Zoning administrator may choose to not require inspection or may be unavailable to give permission. So there was this example of the owner requested a rental inspection prior to a scheduled rental that had a single-family dwelling. They requested that of the fire department, but the zoning administrator was not available. He was out of town, so they weren't able to give the inspection. Number 8, unsafe recreational fires and activities like sky lanterns may not be managed. And that's again because administrative and maintenance obligations were removed. So ISC 307, which provides guidelines for open burning and recreational fires, is no longer applicable. There have been 2 experiences of that. One is the simple one that sky lanterns were observed in the sky over the township on the 4th of July, but there isn't any authority for the fire department to then ask people to stop that.
Aren't they banned by the state also?
Where'd they come from?
Yeah, downtown, I promise you that.
Oh.
They sent them out in the township.
I know, they send them out
Well,
everywhere.
Everywhere.
So, I
This
guess
particular
that's the question.
situation was, we were dispatched to a fire in township. On the way to the fire, I saw the sky lanterns up in the sky. It was south of Douglas. That's how that happened. Obviously, I was going to a structure fire. I couldn't tell you how. We try to find where they are. A lot of them in Venetian 4th of July are from around the Tower Marine area in Douglas because they go
I've
across
seen them around
the lake.
Cal Lake is where I usually see them.
Yeah, everywhere.
So we don't know where it was. I do know it was in the township because I saw them going to the fire. So that's why it's on it. And this is something, to answer your question, Eric, they aren't banned by the state. I know the state
No.
fire marshal And we're trying to get that through, but so far it has not gone through.
Yeah, wouldn't that be part of the fireworks that shoot into the air?
Right, but it's.
Which you need a permit to do?
But it's been a floating luminary, it didn't fit the definition, that's why the fire code was changed in 2015. That specifically says now Skylanders, it wasn't before. So when that code was adopted, we said, oh, great, we've got some teeth here with people putting uncontrolled flames in the sky. So we were really glad to see that sort of activity. You know, and most of them, the majority of them are downtown Saugatuck at Cooks Park and that sort of thing during, but it's not isolated. We had many of them deployed on the lake shore in Township years ago, and as a memorial to somebody who had passed away. So we had to go down there and say, please don't do this anymore.
Oh, they put them on TV as commercials.
Yeah.
That is like.
So, but we're hoping someday,
Yeah.
but it's been over 2.5 years where the state's trying to get them banned. For whatever reasons, it hasn't happened. But local can, the fire code did permit that. Obviously with the change, I can't go to a single family dwelling in township and say, can't do that anymore.
I think that, I know the city of Saugatuck banned those.
They did.
Yes, those are banned.
Well, it's also, yeah, they may have an ordinance specifically for that, but the
But you
fire
have-
code by ordinance has it.
But you have teeth to go
Right.
and say, don't do that.
And we do, we do that all, each and the 4th of July weekend, we're always trying to get them
Sorry,
signed.
moving on.
So 9, water supplies and access roads might not be sufficient for new property developments. And the reason for that is it's not clear, at least I don't think it's clear when developments need planning commission review or assured the fire department will be proactively asked to provide review for developments, or what official approval processes are in place. And we see that right now with North Shore, where township says it's approved, fire department says it's not approved. It's not really clear what the approval processes should have been or are. So the concern of that is that it's not clear when things are going into construction, and there's a risk that things are constructed without fire department approval. The example here is North Shore. 10, fire department training. So significantly increased training for fire department members and lack of clarity on appropriate procedures. And that's because the fire departments now need to know and operate by 2 set of rules, one for the township and one for Saugatuck and Douglas, which I don't think should be underestimated. We haven't really talked about that as an issue, but I think that it is.
Prairie 1 to 6330 Meadowwood Lane.
Excuse me?
6330 Meadowwood Lane in Saugatuck, 76-year-old male, hospital stroke, some onset of dizziness, tingling in his right arm. No history of sir.
So just summary, language and processes around construction review and approval for supply and apparatus access is complex and unclear. The removal of administrative maintenance and operational obligations, I think, caused multiple likely unforeseen issues around the dry hydrants, the obstructions of access roads. Those things we talked through probably weren't anticipated when they removed administrative maintenance obligations from the code. Requiring permission for the rental inspection with no designated backup for the zoning administrator creates barriers for property owners and potentially unsafe rentals, and then additional stress and expectations for the fire department team. Potential solutions revert to IFC adoption in line with Saugatuck and Douglas. That would be the cleanest way to go that would resolve all those issues. Or a second option would be reinstate administrative operational maintenance provisions 1 and 2.5.2. Remove requirement of permission for rental inspection, or at least designate a backup for the zoning administrator, so that they're not just relying on one person to be available for that. And then third, clarify 102.5.1, the language and processes around construction review for water supply and fire apparatus access. So potential revision on that note would be to adopt 102.5.1 with stipulations. So apply IFC 102.5.1 in developments where there are 5 or more 1 or 2 family dwellings. In that case, construction documents, driveways, site plans are submitted to the Saugatuck Township Fire Department for review and approval. In developments where there are 4 or fewer construction documents submitted to the Township Zoning Administrator for review and approval prior to construction, IFC 102 does not apply in smaller developments like that. I think that is a route that had been discussed previously between the chief and the township. I don't know why it was never officially adopted, but I think there was at least informal agreement to go that route before the township went the route they did go down.
Correct.
That was all that I had.
And you have all that?
Yes, I have that. So, 2 things here. One is the actual call reports, details from the fire department around each one of those incidents with a narrative around exactly what happened, and then the reference for why, what part of the code it dictated the action that they took. So that's a spreadsheet with 15 or 17 specific instances, and then I have a printout of this PowerPoint.
You just wasted your paycheck on printing.
Yeah. Well, it came from the fire department.
Okay, good.
All right, so if you want to hand those out.
Thanks for all that work. I'm
Yeah,
sure that was
that's
a
a
lot.
lot
How
of
much time did you have to spend on that?
4 or 5 hours.
And how much time did the department have to invest in that?
I don't know, the time invested is on this.
Oh, it's been going on long time. We have numerous meetings.
I'm sure. Can I just help simplify this for everyone? All I need to know is the date, the location,
It should be on there, right?
what happened, and how you resolved it. That's all I need to do. I'll report that on a monthly basis to my zoning administrator. And immediately, we'll either say, we're going to fix it, we're not going to fix it, or here's how we're going to fix it. That's what my intent was all along, not to have this big retrospective look 9 months later. And I'm thankful that there was nothing really seriously critical here, because when it would have been withheld by the department, they're as complicit in any problems as anybody. So I'm glad we finally got this out. Now, every month, we should see this.
That's fair. I think part of it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but it sometimes took an incident for the fire department to realize, oh, actually, what we just did is no longer part of what our scope of work is. And then you go back and think, oh, there were 2 other cases where we did that in the past year and didn't realize at the time that it actually was no longer part of our authority to do
Yeah,
that.
because it's mainly up to
That's for Kathy.
the officer, the duty officer to weigh in on this call. Is this a call where we will be, whether we'll be experiencing a setback under the new rules or not? So whenever we run a call now in the township, we have to think about that.
And I don't really want to have all that thinking and working. I want to basically have just, there's an incident,
I think
7/14/18, 3317 Hudson Bay, tree down, we had to remove it.
I
And
think
I can
it's-
bring that to my zoning administrator. He may just say, well, I'm glad they removed the tree, they should.
I think
Right.
the point
Part of the job, the
Right.
way the ordinance is, we can't go after.
Well, so maybe we can address that in the ordinance, but not 9 months later. I mean,
But their job is to protect.
yeah.
So you do whatever the hell it takes
I
to
agree.
do it.
I say you move the damn tree.
Later, but still, it's.
And there should be no repercussions to that.
I agree with you, Scott, but, I mean, I think, you know, I can't speak for Chris, but I know what, from a 10,000-foot view of this, I think what Chris learned and what I would like to see is, that, I mean, this is very well detailed, but we wanted to know what they did, what they changed that made, you know,
Things more difficult.
yeah, things more difficult here. And then go back to them and say, hey, guys, this is what you did that made their life harder and stuff. Because it's going to help everyone out. I mean, we want this place, you know, we want the township safe. We also want, I want development in the township. I'm a taxpayer in the township. I like to see a little bit more development. We have 40 kids going to graduate next year in our high school. This year we have 80-some. Our population is dwindling. We need development. We need firefighters. So when we scare away developers, and I think that was their intent on changing the IFC, because it is somewhat black and white. And people do it all the time to accommodate their own development and according to the changes to the IFC, we need to know what they changed that's gonna hinder what we do here in just a snapshot, and go back to them and say, this is what needs to be looked at, seriously looked at. And that's what Chris, I mean, I think,
Well,
this is incredible, all the work you've done on this, but I think what Chris and I are saying, you probably did too much work on it.
So what,
This is
when I
great.
committed to make this report a monthly thing to my board was after the astronomical life loss, yada, yada, with the big ICC fiasco that happened in the local observer. My residents are owed me to make sure if that's a claim, is it false or not? You know, at this point, I haven't seen anything astronomical here, but I committed on a monthly basis to go to my people, my board and my support staff and say, here's what happened last month. And these issues could affect life and property. What can we do about it? That was my intent. It was actually in response to that claim that the township, everybody was going to die in the township.
Okay, but I think this shows the down-the-road effects of the changes in the IFC. These are the things that could happen. These are the things that aren't addressed. And I think this is a good piece of work, that you can
Well,
take
it's a-
this back
it's
to
a
the
great piece of
township
work.
and say, look, these are things in your new ordinances that affect everybody. I think we have to think, you want a growth in your population? I want to see people stay with the fire department, and they're not going to stay if it's not safe here, or we aren't doing our best to make their jobs a safe job. So this is, you can take this back to the township and say, look, we have to look at these parts of the code and make them better, or delete them, or whatever. But you
I'd
should
be happy
look
to
at
see
them.
what our response is to that, but when we run around saying that people are going to die, when we run around telling people that they're unsafe, when we run around saying that our ISO rating is going to change, those
It is.
things, you know, that's not, I don't think that's responsible either. I think that's irresponsible.
Well, I'm telling you that these things, Aaron went over.
Might happen.
Might happen.
I don't know that until we take a look at it. I'll let you know if we agree with you or not.
Okay, well, if they do happen, then what?
I don't know that that's the case.
Well, all right.
Well, as one
Sure.
example, it would seem to me that one of these that came up, the dry hydrant situation, where there are, according to what you said, 2 dry hydrants apparently someplace out there that haven't been determined whether they are in fact connected to water or not. That's the kind of situation that you can't, that's the kind of situation that could kill somebody. But until it kills somebody, you know, you're not gonna get an incident report. So some of these things seem to deal with obvious potentials down the road. You know, nobody died from the fire department having to spend 15 minutes cutting a tree away from the fire hydrant either. But that could have happened, and it's not unreasonable to expect it might have happened. So I think this is a perfectly useful thing. And as to the monthly reporting, it's
So,
an interesting,
you're
hang on a
saying-
second, it's an interesting question because the fire department is now having to try and deal with, you know, 2 sets of rules when they're not even, you know, when they're trying to do their jobs, and so putting that requirement on them to then go back and check every single one of these to make sure, you know, before you file it, it's under this or it's under that, or seems to be a bit overreach. I don't think that's, I just think that's adding insult to injury.
A good example of that would be if we have an incident on Maple Street, west side of Maple Street, that's Saugatuck City. East side is township. So let's see, where is it? What set of rules am I operating under? So
I look at that as you're operating under an oath you took.
You move
And
the
I don't
tree.
give a damn
Yeah,
about
move
the
the
tree.
tree.
Move
Right.
the frickin' tree.
Right.
And get the job done. And then we'll go back and say, you guys, I talked to the Allegan County Road Commission one time about the corner on Old Allegan and Blue Star. And you know what the guy, well, I said, you know, maybe a light or something? You know what he said? We haven't had a fatality there. I mean, that's...
They don't do anything until there is one.
I know, I mean, that's asinine comment.
Look how long it took to get a light on 64th Street.
64th and 138th. after the Facebook, then they put up a yellow flash.
which does not much. I mean, Aaron, I commend you for all the time and effort you put into this. Some of this stuff, I think, needs to be addressed ASAP. Some of the stuff, I don't think we'll get a response on, or it's, kind of ambiguous. But, down power line, we gotta be able to do what we have to do to do
Yeah,
our
I think it's
job.
covered under our zoning, that's your question. I think I at least owe you that response, so. Okay,
The other thing is, I
Move on.
scratch my head that our zoning administrator in our township and our fire chief can't sit down in a room and figure things out together.
you guys.
It seems like two big egos going at each other,
They just did recently on a commercial application, so that was good to see.
and have some decent dialogue and figure out what's best for everybody.
Sounded like that was happening at some point, where they got to this sort of agreement around 5 or more versus 4 or less. I'm not sure when and how that broke down. I really don't know.
We met for almost 9 months before the ordinance changes happened, I believe, or roughly about that.
About 20 meetings.
Yeah, and this, the language you have up here was, I believe, what we were under the understanding was the last agreed draft, and then that Land Division Act and everything else came in what was finally adopted, but was never discussed at a meeting, so I'm not sure how that all came about.
And at this point, the relationship has devolved to the point that it's going to be a long time before that type of happens again, or changes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I guess my question to you as a township supervisor, we know Steve works 3 days a week. You were talking about if the zoning administrator isn't around for approval, we have to wait. I mean, is there any way around that?
I would have me as a backup, so I'll.
There you
address that right
go.
away.
I think that's a good way to
Always
address
around.
it.
Yeah, but if you're not around.
Then I'm his backup.
Yeah.
I think Al's technically the...
What if the chief's not around, can't accept his pay for it, come on. I mean,
Is Al?
we'll figure something
He's
out.
not around either.
No, but he's technically the deputy zoning
Yeah,
administrator.
Al is absolutely, and he's got a cell phone, so,
But it's not worded that way in the ordinance, so...
No,
I mean, some common sense has to apply at some point, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
you
I agree.
just call somebody.
Both ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I mean, you can't blame the chief for all of this.
Well, I'm not blaming the chief for
Steve
any
was
of it.
supposed to come to the chief after, I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, there's
And he
two-
never contacted.
There's two sides to every
All right.
story.
Actually, there's
So-
three.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
So we're not gonna debate that.
Quit beating up the chief.
I'm not beating up the chief.
No one's beating up the chief.
Yeah.
You hear I'm beating up the chief, but that's your perception.
No, you're beating up me.
Well,
mostly, but
sometimes
yeah,
you need a little.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a little.
That's enough.
Okay, moving on, the next thing is the wage study. And,
Who asked for this? Is this what, I thought we were going to a consultant.
let me continue. We started this wage study, and the chief started calling around, and we had started this before we talked about hiring the consultant. And we've been trying to deal with consultants. They're very expensive. And basically, what it comes down to is we're going to end up with something probably not quite as good as that. So my recommendation is to move along with this wage study and use it. It's the same thing a consultant's going to come up with. And I'm satisfied with this, and I'm asking the board if you're satisfied with it.
Where's,
Well, I
we don't
got
have, do we have Fenville, Angie, Holland, any of those areas included?
They're not,
Holland's on there.
Grass Cup?
they're not comparable to this department. It's really hard to find something comparable to this department.
But I will tell you this, if we go to our board and show this, they're gonna say, well, City of Holland's a little different than the City of Saugatuck. And I know what you're saying, it's hard to find comps.
These are the comps.
According to you?
I know, but Grand Traverse, Metro, and Saugatuck, Michigan are not comps. They're not comparable.
They are, actually. We run very similar staffing levels, and the way they do a combination department where they have some full-time staff and some paid on call, just like we do.
And the population there,
I'm not sure what the population is.
well, it does matter.
So you did this based on comparable fire departments, not comparable areas. It's comparable fire departments.
You get, hey, we're just asking questions here.
Yeah, it's
We're gonna be a
fine.
little bit of the devil's advocate,
Yeah, that's
because I
fine.
got this like 2 days ago.
Right.
So,
I know.
I have questions about it. You know, I know Petoskey and Harbor Springs area is very similar to us. We got a real big population in the summer and extremely small in the winter. So, and those are the comps that, in my mind, and that's my mind.
Right,
So,
oh, sure.
you guys are looking at different, I don't even know where Eggleston Township is, but these are just questions we have.
Okay.
I know.
Where did the 331.8 come from? Is that just the city, Douglas and Saugatuck Township, just those three?
Yeah, that housing pricing, it's,
331?
You'll have to ask Chris.
It's from Zillow.com, right there on the bottom. That's what it says.
Zillow,
look, we should be able to get that on a tax base,
yeah, I
shall
think,
we?
yeah. I
Okay,
think-
the question is, do you want us to hire a firm for $4,000 to do this, or are you gonna take this? I mean, we can do either one.
Well, I hate to spend that kind of money, but
I think independent is better.
But the other thing is, we're just asking some questions.
Right.
Maybe a little tweaking of this and getting a little more information and continue on with this path might be an okay way to do it. I mean, Zillow.com, I don't trust. Getting the comps from the township, the cities, that's, we know what the tax base is. Probably give us residential, give us a true number there. Getting a couple other fire departments that I feel would be a little bit closer to us.
Do we know what their budgets are, how much we have $1 million budget, do we know how that compares to these various areas? Because that would also explain how much salary they can afford versus average home price per area. I don't know if that's a good metric to use, benchmark.
Well, the reason Chief and I put that metric in there is because we're looking at what our firefighters have to pay to live here versus what they're making. And same thing for the surrounding areas, that if the average home price, let's say in the city of Holland, is $188,000 and you're making roughly $13,000 more than a firefighter here, but yet the home here costs $150,000 more, that is what we felt was an important metric. And our problem is we're struggling to find staffing that can afford to live in the area, and that was where that derived from.
And that will only get worse.
So the home
Right.
pricing is not, that's not related to how you found areas to comp against?
No.
How do you determine what's a comparable?
Just similar staffing levels, and where they have a similar amount of full-time staff, and then are still supported with paid on call, was primarily how we tried to do it. Some of these, just to throw in there as comparables, like South Haven, it does run full-time staffing, but yet they are still supported with paid on calls. They run ALS transports. I mean, you're never going to get, it's basically trying to compare apples, oranges, and bananas all in the same bowl, because no fire department does everything exactly the same with the challenges we were running into. But in the interest of saving $4,000 to $6,000 of paying a consultant, we tried to do something to see where we could get close. And I probably spent maybe 2 hours emailing neighboring departments and getting information, so it's not like I've invested a lot into this. That it could easily be tweaked for a little bit more time and add a couple extra columns if that's what you would like to see.
I think an annual budget for these departments would be interesting to look at. That's probably more reflective of what they can support from a salary standpoint than housing value. The housing value issue is the same for teachers and anybody else, restaurant help, you know that.
I think on the housing value thing, I think it's fair to use Zillow as long as Zillow is used for everybody else.
And it was,
The air
yeah.
should be the same for everybody.
Right.
But that number jumped out at me too, that $331,000. And I use Zillow from time to time myself. I have a hard time believing that number included the township.
I believe it.
That's not far
Well,
off.
what, doesn't Zillow just take the latest sales for the past?
They do it on a
so many
per
months?
square foot basis.
Yeah, and then that's what
They
they
multiply it
figure.
out.
That's actually not far off. Laura Durham actually publishes a thing in the Local Observer, I think it is once a year or every couple months, and it has the average home prices for the area, and they were right around 300 last year was the last one I remember seeing. So that's why I didn't really balk at it too much when it came off of Zillow. I'm like, well, I guess in the increase in home prices this year, maybe
But
$30,000
the only reason I ask is because it's, far and away the highest number in the whole chart.
Yeah.
There's some pricey areas in
Yeah,
that chart.
right.
could be an incident of our zip code, because if zero goes by zip code, township and Saugatuck City sharing the same zip code, so.
No, 49408 is township also, which is Dunville.
Yeah, they got multiple ones.
Yeah. And we've got to get a Hamilton in there also. I don't know, I think we need a better justification than this. I think this has raised too many questions. I'd like to see annual budgets. You know, we have to pay a consultant. Have we asked the consultant what they would charge us based
Yes.
on?
$4,000 to $6,000 were the prices we were getting, yes.
One line I would like to see in here, and I know we don't like to, I have a problem letting the public know what you guys are making.
Mhm.
I always think that's very personal,
Mhm.
but you are public officials.
Mhm.
Their current salaries.
It's right there, and then under current wages in the middle of the column.
Okay, well, there you go, thank you.
Mhm.
You're ahead of the game.
And we originally actually had that in the top of the spreadsheet to make it, you know, everybody together, but then it throws off the average of the neighbors
Yeah.
by putting our salaries in there, so it wasn't calculating correctly.
I'm sorry I didn't read
Yeah.
that because I saw that home prices and I stopped looking.
Right.
Thought that was a little high.
Do you have to get, for example, the individual jurisdiction's budget, fire district budget, whatever, do you have to, the only way to get that is by making whatever it is, 12 calls, phone calls?
Or emails, and many of them just sent just a page that included wages and not their whole budget.
Understood.
So,
But
I
I'm
think-
just wondering if, you know,
There's no easy way to get it.
there should be some
Gotta be public.
public
I was gonna say,
information.
Yeah, on their website.
Yeah, I tried that
Financial-
first.
What do they
Okay,
call it?
like Holland
Spreadsheets
websites?
or
No,
whatever.
many of them are not available online, that it did take, I tried Googling or searching that way first, and then I just ended up emailing the chiefs or the, you know, people in the department, and got the information I could from them. But it wasn't necessarily readily available, and I only got, you know, the salary information for many of them, and not necessarily, yeah, the whole budget.
Okay, but you, and this is just a suggestion, the bottom line is, what do we have to pay our firefighters to get them to stay here? If you can go to Holland and work, how many days a week do they work in Holland?
9 days a month.
9 days a month, and make more than you make working in Saugatuck, you're not gonna stay here. And I think we have to retain the help we have. And the only way to retain them is to pay them. I mean, John Miles just worked 21 days in a row. Now, you know, is he gonna stay here, or is he gonna go to Holland when the opportunity arises and work for 9 days a month? I mean,
To make
we
more
have
money.
to, and make more money. We have to be practical about this. We have to do something not to lose our firefighters.
I think this is a good start, to make some type of justification. I think it just needs to have the right data, and then it's gotta be.
And I think our fire department can collect the right data far better than some consultants can.
All the consultant's gonna do is the same thing I did, and call or email these agencies to get numbers, so it wouldn't
And then they're
make...
gonna charge us a big dollar
Yeah,
amount to do it.
I think we got a talented enough crew with Chris and.
And Greg.
And we have some resources here they could always utilize. I think with, you know, Chris recommending getting the budget, that's a good thing.
That's gonna be a real good metric to determine, you know, they may have $2, $3 million budgets where we have
Right.
one. Well, that would be a big reason why you're paying, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I understand what you
So-
mean, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
I understand.
agree
I
with
think
you.
we're talking-
Jane, I think we all.
I thought we were gonna
agree
give
with
John a
you.
raise last time, and it switched on us, but,
Oh, that's still in the works.
Yeah, I know, I'm sure it
We're working
is.
on this.
I really think that this is important
Yeah.
to, do our due diligence, because right now with the animosity from this department in our township, we need to, justify anything we propose. And doing stuff like this shows that we are doing our due diligence
Right.
and keeping qualified people.
Okay, just think about this. So you go find out what the budgets are for all these departments. Does that change the fact that we need to pay our firefighters to get them to stay here? It doesn't really
No,
change.
no.
It could change if, for example, to use the number that was thrown on, City of Holland's firefighting budget is $3 million and ours is $1 million.
Mhm.
Then it's not an apples to apples situation, because then a firefighter, or certainly a supervisory person going from here to there, can expect a workload that's significantly different than here, or area of responsibility, whatever. So that additional column, I think,
it's.
for a whole host of reasons, would be a nice column to have.
Okay, we can do
I
that.
agree that adding this would be helpful, but I also say, in the business world, if I need to hire an IT developer, if I'm a $2 billion company, or I'm a $7 billion company, you need to pay an IT developer the same, or.
And I'm not saying this by any stretch that it would be a direct relation.
So it doesn't really change the bottom line.
Well,
But it'll affect your
It could
ranges.
color the bottom line,
Yeah.
and it's not a bad piece of information to have. I know it's a pain in the ass to get, and that's what makes me.
The other thing is, it might show a percentage of their budget that goes to wages. So let's say 49% of Holland's budget goes to the wages, and ours is at 20. That's a pretty big discrepancy.
Yeah.
So I think
True.
that's something that we need to justify. I'm telling you, it's not going to be easy if the people in the township stay in their office because they have a problem with this department, to get something like that pushed through. If we have a changeover, I don't think we'll have a problem. But if we can,
But-
and that's just bullshit politics.
The township doesn't control what we do.
But they all have to approve the budget.
They approve the budget, they don't.
They don't approve how it's spent.
Well,
But I think we owe it to the public to do due diligence.
Yes.
The question here is not whether we need to address the wage issue. The question is, do we need to address the wage issue based on the home price for me, because everybody's got the same problem. But it's really how much can we support? And a good benchmark, if we're going to use these various departments, is how big are their budgets compared to their salaries? And that'll give us an idea.
And I
If we're at
think-
20%, maybe we need to be higher.
Okay, but
What
you
is
need to
your-
understand one thing about this whole home thing is, these firefighters have to live in this jurisdiction. They have to.
I thought we waived that
Well,
years ago.
they have to live, to run a good fire department, they have to,
I understand.
otherwise they have to do an overnight thing at the department.
Right,
Which we've done.
which we've done.
I think what is here clearly, just based on what is here, is there's a problem. I don't see how you can look at this and say, there's no problem. There's definitely a problem. The question is, what's the magnitude of the problem? The other information will help firm that up more than what's here, and there's time to do it, and resources available to do it. We should probably do it. I don't think it necessarily.
And I don't have a problem with doing it, that's not I'm saying do it, but it really shouldn't affect the bottom line as far as wages are
And
concerned.
to the point of, the reason I make the point is because I think the people in the cities and the township should be aware that there's a problem. This information demonstrates there is a wage
Problem.
inequity problem in the department relative to a group of representative comparative districts. We're not yet sure what the dimensions of that problem are, but there is a problem. So that it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody when action ends up being taken to try and address that problem, which is going, unless we're not doing our jobs, is going to happen.
Right, I don't want to see our fire department become a training ground for Holland or for area fire department. We just get a person all trained, and they go get a better job. I don't want that to happen to us, because we don't have anybody standing behind us.
I think it's all about justification, and the more details we can give our constituents or our municipalities to let them know, hey, we need another firefighter. You know how many times, I hear Greg called me this week, I put in 80 hours. That's not safe.
Well, and.
I'm sorry, that's
And Greg's
not
on
safe.
call this weekend because there's nobody else to be on call. That's why he's gone.
So I think the data point around, I care less about the total budget, I think the point around total or percent of spend on head wages.
That's probably the biggest indicator.
better than a
Yeah,
total
I think
budget.
so.
Because that's going to help you understand what this bottom range should really be. Right now, we're taking a
What is
stab.
Chris, you got a comment?
Well, I was just saying, I'm glad you brought that up, because the annual budget really doesn't necessarily mean much, because they might have 35 pieces of apparatus and we only have 10, or they might have 2 to 3 stations and we only have 1. So Some of them, like even for example, South Haven, as I said earlier, runs ALS transport and we don't. So that all, like, I mean, their rigs are $1 million a pop for their ALS transport, or to run ALS transport. They spend about $2 million a year just on staffing and equipment. So I mean,
ALS is what?
paramedics basically.
Okay, thank you.
Advanced life support.
Okay, advanced life support.
So to just put the annual budget number in there, I don't think would really be a good measurable without all of that other information, which would take a little more time to collect of how many trucks you have, how many stations. But the percentage of, hey, we're running at 49% of our budget is our wages, and theirs are at 75, might be a better measurable.
I think that's a good quick metrics, I agree.
And that probably wouldn't be as
Yeah.
hard to obtain, and just say, hey, what percentage of your budget is in
Yep.
wages if I emailed every one of these chiefs again?
If you could get the budget, that'd be ideal, but
Right.
if you can't, the percentage for wages would be
Great.
very important.
What is our percentage right now?
I think we're at like 49 or 50, so we're right around the 50 mark, it might be just over that.
I'm not a mathematician, but doesn't that cause a potential issue in the departments, like you said, if you've got a department with 4 firehouses that they're running?
Yeah.
Their percentage, comparing their percentage to wages and our percentage to wages, I'm not sure is an apples to
Well,
apples
and that's the
comparison.
whole thing.
But it seems
There
like if they
is
have,
no apples
seems
to
like if they
apples.
have 4 firehouses, they would need more people to run those, you know?
Yeah.
So, I agree, maybe.
I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
It's not
none of these
perfect,
are
it's not perfect.
It's just more relevant than average home price for me
Yeah,
as far as a justification for, we need something.
Well, we can try, I mean, we've already tried, so we can try to give more data. I don't know if we'll ever give enough data, but.
Even if you can get
Yeah.
half of
But
these,
you know what, if we can justify it with these 7 people here on the board,
Well, hopefully.
we're gonna have to go sell it to our municipalities, and the more data we have,
Right.
I think the easier it's gonna
Okay.
be.
All right, yeah, all right.
I think you guys are a
All right, so
great
what the
start,
question
Chris.
was, do you want the fire department to continue on with their comparisons, or do you want to hire a consulting firm? I don't think a consulting firm is going to do as good a job as Chris does, because they don't have they're just going to look at wages and budget, and they aren't going to look at all the variables
Right.
that come into this.
Yeah, because if they look at home prices, that doesn't mean a hill of beans to me.
No. But-
Understanding the population of your area and
And what you
what
do.
happened, yeah.
'Cause
Chris knows that better than
South Haven
me.
runs the ambulance service.
Right.
We contract our ambulance service. I mean, they're all different. It's very difficult to find apples to apples.
Jane, in my opinion, let's not hire the consulting firm. Let's see if we can get a little bit more information without, Chris putting 150 hours into this thing, and see if we get to a point where we're not happy, then we go back and think about the consulting firm. But I think Chris can find the information we need.
Now, we take a look at our budget and see how it fits within there,
Right.
understanding all future costs going forward. We know we're gonna have more costs in certain areas, so,
Yeah.
and we'll just have to see how that, we can't spend more that's in our budget, but we can certainly adjust next year's budget to
Yeah.
accommodate a higher salary range.
If we need
If
another,
there's room
if
there.
we need another mill or whatever, we haven't asked for one in a while, to cover wages, then that's what we need to do. And the cost of living is not getting any cheaper around here.
No, absolutely not.
No.
But the truth is, you can always go out for more information, so I think the question is, do we feel at least generally confident that if we had the percentage of wages to total budget within these comparable districts, that we would have enough data, never perfect, but enough data on which to make that decision, as opposed to looking at that and going, you know what, if we only knew what color the trucks were painted or some other thing,
Yeah, really.
So
Yeah, or really.
so we can kind of get this to a decision state.
Okay, when do you feel like, would you feel comfortable with actually looking at wages and raising people's wages to what they ought to be?
Do we have budget money to do it?
Yes, we do.
I think that'd be, to me, the next question, is if we can get to this, to a point where we have the data we need to make a good case, then the next piece
That
is,
fits in
well,
budget.
what's the cost, what's the total
Yeah.
cost going to be to make that change?
Right.
Okay.
And what
then
can we
how do
afford
pay
this
for it?
time around? Maybe maybe it's an incremental thing, that we look at it and say, hey, we need to pay these guys, this is what they should be making, we don't have that much money in the budget this time around, let's go here, and the next time around, we'll get a little more money and then get them up to speed. The other thing that needs to be done, and I don't know where we are, is job descriptions and
We
things
have
like
those.
that. Okay, because that's important
Yes, we have
to be
those.
able to put
Here's
people
how you
in-
get there.
in categories.
Yeah.
Well, this data is all relevant when the time comes for a mill request.
Absolutely.
You're gonna need all of this stuff, that people are
Yeah.
gonna wanna see it and you owe it, so.
Mhm.
So, just to make sure I'm looking for the right data, you want to know the percent of the budget to wages, the population, this, probably I threw in the square miles of their coverage area, I don't know that that is necessarily relevant either, and then the color of the fire trucks. So-
And our boat race banner is one blue.
Yeah, how many boats do they have?
And it would also be, I think another relevant point might be total employees, not all the employees, but everyone, total employees covered in this list, firefighters, captains, deputy chiefs, chiefs.
That's a pretty thorough analysis there, I think that's good.
Per department, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I would also like to see if we could get any comps from Petoskey/Harbor Springs, because that's as close to Saugatuck as I could think
And
of.
so Fenville and Grass Cup aren't
Or
comparable?
Charlevoix?
No, like Fenville
Too
has
small?
one full-time firefighter, but not, their chief is paid on call,
Okay.
their deputy chief is paid on call, so it's really not comparable.
Grass
as far
Cup's
as-
small also?
They have one chief and
Yeah.
one deputy chief.
Ganges?
full-time. They have all paid on call.
Charlevoix? That
Yeah.
is something that the
Grand Haven.
the fluctuation, yeah, maybe Grand Haven also. I don't,
It's police, fire.
Yeah, I had the
Combo?
numbers for Grand Haven, but they're
Okay.
public safety, so I
Oh,
took them back out.
yeah.
They're not exactly a comparable either.
And you probably should find out the color of their turnout gear too.
Right, so Charlevoix,
I was at Spartan Motors this week and they were painting one, Carolina blue for the Carolinas. You know, like robin egg blue. I'm like, oh my God. They're into their Carolina blue. Let them go.
Go with plastic dip so I can peel that off.
There you go.
Okay, moving on, the chief and Chris have been served by Mr. Boscroft, so we have pending litigation. If you want to, talk to our attorney, I'm not sure which attorney we will be using, we will be using,
Are we in closed session?
no.
Okay. We don't need to be.
We will be using Jeff Swugget or the attorney for the insurance department.
Have you submitted this to the insurance?
Yes.
Okay, good. They'll probably make a recommendation of that.
Yes. So we just submitted it to them yesterday, so, so we'll have to decide, about who we will use. If the insurance doesn't cover it, then we will be using Jeff Swugget. By the way, he was just, cited as being municipal attorney of the year in Michigan.
I saw that. That's good.
Which is a good thing. So we're two here, right?
I think one thing that's going to help this is expediting the Board of Appeal process.
I don't understand how that helps, because they've already filed suit.
The Board of Appeal could actually come up with a solution that may drop the suit.
The judge may say, have you gone through every
I'm
avenue
sure
available?
she will, but
He would, and they'll say no, because we have a Board of
then
Appeals.
they'll come back.
And
And
then-
yes, Jeff is writing the bylaws for the Board of Appeals, and I've already talked to him about it, like we directed at the last meeting. And he will have that to us shortly, and as soon as he's done, I will schedule the first Board of Appeals meeting, and we'll elect a chair, and we'll move on from there.
And get those bylaws to them in advance of that meeting if possible.
We'll try.
Yeah.
them.
Because they'll have 10 days once the application is filled out.
I understand.
Have you been served this? You have been served?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So now,
I
if
came in, I
anybody,
was off, I'm sorry.
if anybody has questions, we can contact our attorney. He is available this morning, otherwise we won't go into closed session, whatever you want to do.
I would wait till we have it,
So we
an
have
attorney.
more, yeah, so we have more information.
Yeah.
Well, I could discuss this because, I mean, how in the world is a fire district being part of the complaint? I mean, I know you're on this and Chris is on this, but we're on this, the fire district, right?
Well, we're the board, but the district is,
You mean,
The fire department.
Yeah, okay. Just kind of weird.
I think that's the legal entity.
Okay.
so what do you want to do?
I have not seen that.
I haven't either. Is there any, can you talk about it without going into closed session?
You can't, this is all recorded, I don't see how you can do that, Jim.
We can talk about the complaint, can't we? We have questions about the complaint?
No, not strategy, just
Right,
facts.
exactly.
Just information.
Well, then I want to get the attorney up, just to be sure that we're not doing.
Well, I can.
I'd want to go into closed session.
Well,
so we
let
don't
me do
discuss.
this. I will email everyone a copy of this.
All right,
And then you can look at it, read it, and understand what we're being sued for.
okay.
I need your email.
And then maybe have a subsequent closed session with the attorney if it's required.
If required, yeah.
All right.
I'll email you this also.
Thank you.
I don't need to do it separately, so it's not a,
You know,
I
you
do
can
it
send out
together.
information, you just can't discuss it.
okay.
You never hit reply all when you're holding a meeting. Okay, so,
101, Daniel W. Fox, 101@gmail.com. Oh, good.
all right.
And I'll email this out this afternoon, or when I get back to my office.
Are there any other comments? Anybody?
And
Good to be with you.
Well, the only reason why I got this is because Aaron Sheridan got it, and he just forwarded it to me. So
I know.
it wasn't like I was served.
Well, I guess just my comment, can I comment on
Sure.
this? I got a call Monday from the Commercial Record from Scott Sullivan asking me to comment on the lawsuit. I said, well, Scott, you kind of know the answer to that, I can't comment on it. And he went on for several minutes. And I said, Scott, you realize I haven't been served? He said, well, I got it last Wednesday. So,
And he wouldn't divulge his source, but it hadn't been filed with Allegan County.
he always said it wasn't Scott Bosgroff who had sent it, so I don't need to know. I said, I just think it's pretty odd that the press gets it before anybody else gets it, but then I found out that Eric was sent it as well. So, just want you to know that.
The only other suggestion I had about going into closed session is discuss his review.
And I forgot the minute, I'm sorry.
Well, it's not on the agenda, so we couldn't have done
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So we'll do that.
It's part of the next meeting, I would just do it
Yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah, we'll put it at the end so
Yeah.
people can leave,
Yes.
and we can go
I-
through it
And then maybe if there's any type of legal, discussion, you could have that in
Yeah.
addition.
in addition to.
Those are both reasons for going into closed
When is
session.
our next meeting, 20th?
All right, thank you, Aaron, for your hard work.
Yes, awesome.
And welcome Dan to the fire board.
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to
Thank you for joining us.
Well, Dan,
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
Is this extra?
no. Dan, I've been on the board a while.